So far during this course, we have looked at a few different methods of moving our clips over onto our timeline. Not only as complete clips, but also pre-trimmed, shall we say, by using the source monitor. Well, in this tutorial, I'm going to extend our knowledge here, and as we do this, we'll see a couple of new things that we've not seen before. So, first of all, I'm going to grab one of these videos. I'll left-click down here in the project monitor and simply drag it up and place it within our source monitor. And there we go, we now see it in view. You'll remember how we do this. If we don't want to bring all of this clip in, if we want to just range a section, we need to create an in and an out point. So I'll do that. I'll place the CTI here, and then by clicking on this button, I'm now setting the in point at which I want this video clip to be brought into our timeline. And by association, if I move the CTI over here and click on the out button, then now that grey area is just this small section that I want to use. Now we've seen how we move this to our timeline with some of the buttons, but another way of doing it, simply left click here on the source monitor view and then drag and drop down onto video track 1, and that takes the embedded audio with it. Okay, simple enough. I'll just come up to edit and undo that, and in fact I'll close that from view within our source monitor, so I'll select there and hit close. Now what I want to do is bring in more than one clip. So I'll select a few, I'll select this first one, and then I'll just navigate down a little bit, holding my shift key down and selecting down here. All of these are now selected. So now if I left click and drag up to my source monitor, they are all open as individual clips, ready for me to move between them, editing as necessary. Selecting here this source drop down, we now see all these different video files. I'll select the first one, zoom number 66. Now you might remember me saying a few tutorials ago, if you've already set up the in and out point for a particular clip, then you're going to see it showing here. If I change this over to a different clip, then you can see with this one, I've not set the in and out point previously. Anyway, I'll go back to that first clip, and this time rather than dragging and dropping onto our timeline, I'll use the insert button here. Okay, there it is. I'll just zoom in slightly by using the horizontal scroll bar just underneath. And then now the procedure is, as we are building up our project, we would just move across to a different clip, this second one for example, and go through the same procedure, setting the in and out points for this one as well. Once I'm happy, I'll left click on the source monitor and drag and drop down onto my timeline. Okay, simple enough. Now I'm going to pause the screen recording whilst I do all the others, well, all the others except for one. Okay, so I've done most of these clips, but there were a couple of clips that weren't suitable for this particular sequence. They were filmed at slightly different angles and didn't really seem to make sense. Anyway, regardless, I'm going to select my bottom option now, clip number 72, and I'm doing this because I want to show you a different method of what we've been doing and what we've seen so far. I could just as easily set the in and out points here on the source monitor. However, I do want to show you this different way of doing it. Okay, so now down in my project panel, I don't want the list view, I want this icon view, so click on the icon view there, and now revealed you'll see all the different bins that I've been using. Of course, as we have been progressing through this tutorial, I've only been looking at the videos that are inside the video bin, and in fact we can see there that there are 27 items, 27 videos. Now I actually want to open up a floating panel for any of our bins, in particular this video one. So by double clicking it, well now as you can see, I've got this bin panel of its own, strictly for the videos. Now these thumbnails might be quite small, and in actual fact they are a little bit too small for what I want to show you. So what I can do is come down to the zoom button, click on here a couple of times until I see this large enough so that it's comfortable to work with. Okay, and at this size, we can see that the clips we have used already, at the bottom right hand corner of any clip that has been used within this sequence, you'll see those two small icons. You can see that the video has been used, and also the audio embedded, and how many times, in this case just the once. Whereas if I navigate down to clip number 72, as we know already we haven't used this yet, and as I roll the mouse over it, remember we've seen this before, we can scrub through just to check that this clip is suitable. And then if I move down to the foot of it, then we'll see that this orange bar pops up so that I can set the in and out points here instead of using the source monitor. We have to use the shortcuts I for in and O for out. So that's what I'll do. I'll left click and drag this drag slider to where I want the in point to be, and then hit I on the keyboard, and then that sets the in point. And then by moving over to the right, I'll set here as the out point, so I'll hit O on the keyboard, and then now that orange bar indicates that this is the area or the range that I want to use on my timeline. Now I could drag and drop from here, or if I close this bin panel down, and then I'll go back to my list view, although that's not really important. However, what is, you'll see in the source monitor that I've now got exactly that ranged area set up, with my input and my output set there, which means I can left click on it and drag it down to the timeline, as we've done a few times already. Okay, now we're done with all these clips, so I'll click on here and choose Close All. And I'll work my way back down over to the timeline so that we're looking at this Anglesey sequence. Okay, now I'm going to finish up for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we're going to look at further trimming methods that we can use now that we've got various individual clips on our timeline.